everyone, welcome to Naomi's Bookshelf. I'm Naomi. Here's my final part of my wrap-up. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed recently. Thank you Katie and Krista and Victoria for shouting out my channel. I really do appreciate it. I love watching all of your channels and I am really happy and thankful that you shouted me out. So we're going to start with my 6 books that I read. I'm holding one of them right now. And of these 6 books that I read since my wrap-up, my first wrap-up of the month, I will link it down below and in the cards. This one counted for Thriller-a-thon and for Historathon, and that one is Death Comes at the End by Agatha Christie. So this one, it was my Agatha Christie book of the month. I try to read one a month. It's a really great way for me to get into her work. I love her independent novels as well, and this is one of them. So this one follows a family in ancient Egypt where now this is an interesting one because I've always struggled to get into this one. I don't know why, because I listened to the audio of this and I really enjoyed it. Now, maybe it's the names that were throwing me off with the first, like trying to read it physically. But this follows, I feel like I'm not even gonna say their names because I'm gonna probably butcher them. This follows a family where the father is a priest in ancient Egypt who is in charge of burying the dead. Now, he goes away on a lot of trips. He has 2 grown sons, 1 teenage son, and 1 daughter who was recently widowed. And they're all their children and families, along with his mother in the home. And he comes back with a concubine from Memphis, I believe is where she's from. And basically, everyone hates her. She's arrogant, she's a snob, she tends to rule over everyone, and they're like, you are not his wife, you are his concubine. Something is like, you need to change your attitude, basically. Now, that's where this kind of takes off. Basically, she is later found dead, and the whole mystery of what happened, along with this religious superstition of ghosts and afterlife things. It's very good. I love how Agatha Christie loves dramatic families. She does a really great job, I think, of the interpersonal relationships. Along with the family, there's the favorite slave in the family, or the household servant. And it is just a really interesting one. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, I believe. It was not perfect. I can't put my finger on it. I don't know why. But I really did enjoy it once I got past the names and I listened to the audiobook. The next one that I'm going to talk about is one that I got as an e-arc from NetGalley, along with buying my own copy, as I felt the e-arc wasn't quite working for me and I wanted to own it anyways. So that one is Smokescreen by Terry Blackstock. Now, this is an author who I basically grew up on for my suspense novels. I loved her books as a teenager. She really struck a chord in me with these suspense romantic mysteries, and I picked this one up expecting that, and I was disappointed. It was a really well-written mystery about this woman named Brenna and her old flame Nate, who is coming back. It's during the California fires, and he has been burned badly, and so he's come back as a required break, and he is not happy about it. And then he meets Brenna, who is currently fighting with her husband for custody of their 2 children. And she is definitely losing that battle. Now, it's an interesting story of this family dynamic where Nate's father was accused of killing her father, Brenna's father. And so it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet kind of situation. I found it to be very interesting, but it wasn't suspenseful. I would not call this a suspense. I'd probably call this a family drama, if anything. I do recommend it if you want that kind of a book. It just wasn't the suspense that I was looking for. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and I do recommend picking it up if you want a great, family drama-esque book. It does have some elements, but it's nowhere near as suspicious or high energy as her other books, her previous books that I have read. So the next one that I read was for the Louisa May 2020, and that is Jo's Boys by Louisa May Alcott. This one was so great. It was so much better than Little Men. So if you have read Little Men and you're stuck on it, try picking up Jo's Boys. It was so good. It did have a lot of characters, which was a downfall again, but I loved how it followed each character, and each character had, not each character, but most characters had specific growth and abilities. Also, I really loved Nan as a doctor. It was just so much fun. And then all the romances. Those were great to see. I loved seeing Tom's romance. I loved seeing Dan's emotions. Also, Dan's story just really hit me as his growing. I don't want to spoil anything. It was really, really good. I really loved Dan's story. Nat's story as well, I thought was just so great, and it definitely carried on from the first, from Little Men, when you see Nat and Daisy as a friend and then potential romance later on. I also really, really enjoyed all the different aspects of this world where all these different boys are going off to different sections of the world, and there's some really high intense moments, like a meal in the shipwreck. Really intense, but also really, really great. I just loved it all. I thought this was great, but it did have too many characters for me, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The last one that is for physical books that I can show you is Shakespeare. So I am reading or watching a Shakespeare play a month. So this month I decided, in honor of Historathon, I would listen to, or I would watch, King John. So that is the first of the historical plays. I looked it up on Google. If it's wrong, I'm sorry. That's what Google told me. First, chronologically, of the histories, if I can say that word. So King John was really interesting. I liked the politics of it, the different women involved, the different life or death situations, and all of the different political things where King John is trying to secure his throne against France, but also trying to take France too. Very interesting, and different family dynamics. Really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to get more into the histories that Shakespeare wrote. I know they're not completely accurate, so I'm counting it as historical fiction for Historathon, but I'm also really excited that I finally read a history of Shakespeare and really enjoyed it. So I gave King John 4 out of 5 stars. Now we're going to talk about an arc that I received and I read for Thrillerthon, which was A Conspiracy of Bones by Kathy Reich. And this one was pretty good. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't quite buy the whole mystery element, and some of it just felt too fantastical, but this is speaking as an Owen's voice. I have daily chronic migraines. I've talked about it a few times on my channel, and Temperance Brennan in this one has migraines due to an aneurysm in her brain, or that's what they think it is. I'm not really sure all the scientific details about it. I kind of blurred over in those sections, but she has chronic migraines at this point, and it was so cool to see someone who has migraines living life and just working hard and doing things, even though she had those migraines that were sometimes debilitating. That's how I often feel with my life, where I just have to live through them and keep going. And it was just really great to see that in a book character, especially a main character. And it wasn't something that held her back in a really negative way. It was just part of her life, and she kept doing her job. I really appreciated that. So it follows Brennan as she is being put on leave because of this aneurysm in her brain and her migraines, and something's going on. And so she's gone home and back to her mom's place, and she's kind of working, but not really, because the coroner there is not wanting her to be there. And so basically they discover a body, which is very confusing. Its teeth are gone, I believe, if I remember right. It's teeth, and it's been eaten by rats, I want to say. I can't remember the details right now. There's a lot of stuff going on in this book. So basically this body's found. It's very hard to decipher who it is, and this new coroner, or this other coroner, she's like, oh, I know who it is. It's this and this and this, and she's talking to the press about it before she's ever actually discovered true information or done a lab test. And so Brennan decides to step up and try to solve this on her own. It leads her down a very windy path full of conspiracies and different elements, which I didn't really buy, but I really enjoyed the representation, and I thought it was well written in that way. I just didn't think that it was a great mystery, or that if it was way too fantastical to be real. Which, I mean, maybe that's the way it is for some books, but I just didn't like that. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I do recommend reading it, especially if you want to see someone with a migraines perspective. Pick it up. It also comes out on March 17th, so you can pick it up very soon if you'd like it. The last book that I got as an arc that I want to talk to you about in this one is 18 Tiny Deaths. And I think it's something like the untold story of Francis Glessner Lee, who basically created the world of forensic science. And it is written by Bruce Goldfarb. Now, this one was really interesting. It's nonfiction, and it's basically for if you love The scientific behind the scenes of crime scenes. This is the book for you. It follows, it's nonfiction, obviously. So it follows Frances's life. So she grew up in a very rich home. She married well, and then she divorced, and she continued to want to do more with her life, and she got into this aspect of medicine, which they called legal medicine at the time. It's also now known as forensic science, where, you know, autopsies, DNA, blood, lab tests, you name it, those were the kind of things that they were discovering and talking about. It was very interesting. I thought that it was a little bit of a slow start, which was harder to get into, but once I got started, I really enjoyed it. It follows such interesting paths of her life, and it comes from her creativity and ways of working with Harvard to make this an actual career instead of just something where crimes could be misconstrued because an autopsy wasn't effectively done, or it wasn't done at all, and murderers were got away with it, or people were convicted of who were innocent, but the evidence was not properly looked at. It just follows all that. I thought it was really well done. It came out on the 18th of February, I think, so you can still check it out and buy it. I would highly recommend it if you are interested in the sciencey, nerdy background of that. And I also know that Pop Sugar Challenge is doing, one of the prompts for that is to read about a woman in STEM. This is a perfect one for that if you'd like to read that. It is about a woman in STEM, forensic science, medical history. I count it. So yeah, I would highly recommend 18 Tiny Deaths. So I'm just going to touch on the other 7 books that I read this month so you can see what they are, and you can go back to my wrap-up if you'd like to learn more about those. I read The Shelter on the Most High by Connelline Cazette. I read Little Town on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. I read The Marrow Thieves by Sherry Demeline. I read The Chase by Janet Ivanovich and Lee Goldberg. The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, and The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. So those are all in my other wrap-up, and I will link it down below, like I said, or link it up top. Now onto the bit more nerdy side of this. I'm just going to go over a few figures. I read 5,003 pages this month, which was 2.5 times what I read last month in January, which now totals, I think, 7,000, just under 7,000 pages read so far this year. Yeah, 6,978. So of these books, I gave 1 5-star, 6 4-stars, and 6 3-stars. Of these books, 3 were from the library, 3 were ARCs, and 7 were from my library, my personal library that I've owned since before 2020. So in regards to the genres, I read 1 romance, 1 dystopian. I also read 1 true crime. I read 5 historical fiction and 5 thrillers or mysteries. Now for the ages, basically everything I read was for adult except for 2 books which were, just checking my things here, except for 2 books which were YA and 1 book which was a middle grade. So it's been a pretty good month. I'm going to post the pictures here, my bingo cards. I filled them out with the books if you want to check out what books I read for what genres, or not what genres, for what readathons. There are the Timeless Tomes bingo board, along with the Historathon bingo board, and the Thrillerathon bingo board. So they'll all be up here. Thank you for watching my February wrap-up. It was a really good reading month, and I'm very proud of how much I got done, and also how much I read that was really great quality. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these books or did any of the readathons, what you read for them. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Please subscribe if you'd like to, and like this video if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time with another video. Bye for now.